What's up, guys? Welcome in. Tonight is going to be trying out something new. So let us know what you guys think about it, if you guys get some value out of tonight's call. But we're going to be going through a 10-question quiz. This is going to be either yes or no answers or multiple choice. So we'll read out the question, drop the multiple choice, read out the multiple choice, and then you guys will have 30 seconds to drop your answer in the chat. No freaking using AI, Google and shit. Tonight is about getting the value out of it. So you're going to remember the questions a lot better if you give your best guess and even get it wrong. So Tyler, I'm going to pass it to you for the first one, and then we're going to discuss what the right answer is, why, and all that behind it. So first off, what's up, dude? I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
Same here, bro.
For you guys, Tyler was just in Arizona this last weekend for our in-person event, so got to know Tyler very well over this weekend, but it was a damn good time. All right, man, what's the first question? What we got?
Can you lose weight in a hypertrophy focused program? Yes or no? So I'll repeat it one more time. Can you lose weight in a hypertrophy focused program? Yes or no?
Drop in the chat. Sick. We got lobbing you guys a softball to start it out. Yes. So Tyler, you want to break it down real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. You can definitely lose weight on a hypertrophy program. So let's say you just finished a strength block, and for that strength block, you were just at maintenance calories, so you weren't losing or gaining any weight. And then you just went ahead and deployed a hypertrophic program, which is a lot more volume than you're used to. And again, you're eating at the same calories, but now your workload is higher. So therefore, you can burn more calories because you did more work, and you will lose weight.
Yeah. And losing weight is based off of calories in, calories out. So you can be in a caloric deficit no matter what your program looks like. All right, question number 2, guys, is going to be a multiple choice. So drop A, B, C, or D down in the comment. No need to type the whole thing out. On a timed 2-mile, what pacing strategy usually produces the best outcome for most guys? A, go all out as hard as possible and hang on. B, first mile controlled, second mile build, last 400 hard. C, even pace the whole way, no change. Or D, start slow, save everything up for the last lap. Drop it in the chat. B. Cool. Couple easy ones to start it out. Everyone said B. First mile controlled, second mile build, last lap 400, last 400 hard. So yes, that is typically the pacing strategy that we recommend for you guys. So as you guys are going to these 2-mile runs coming up in your guys' plans, go into it with a strategy. It's not, hey, I'm going to set a 3-minute PR and see if I can break 12, even though I've been running 14 for the last 6 weeks. It's, hey, I'm going to be pumped if I hit a 13:20. So what does that look like on the individual splits? I know I need to maintain at least a sub 640 pace on that first mile. I might shoot for 635 instead of going all out trying to hit 615 and crushing myself on that first mile. Then I get a little bit faster into that second mile. And then as I get into that last 400 meters, I really start burning it down and then finish across the finish line pretty much, throwing up. It's always going to be a lot of pain across that finish line, but those are where those PRs come in. All right. No more easy ones, guys. Tyler, hit it with the next one.
All right, I'll go slow with this one. All right, I want you to rank these plyometric exercises from greatest to least in order of neurological demand. So from greatest to least, order of neurological demand. So write this down. We have a broad jump. We have a pogo jump. We have a tuck jump and a box jump. So again, rank these in order from greatest to least of neurological demand. I'll repeat it one more time. We have a broad jump, a pogo jump, a tuck jump, and a box jump.
Let's see what we got.
No quick replies on that one.
Boom. Travis said broad jump, box jump, tuck jump, pogo jump. Magnus said the same. Broad, box, tuck, pogo. Solid, solid. All right. Nicholas, broad, tuck, box, pogo. Alpar, box, broad, tuck, pogo. Ethan, box jump, tuck jump, broad jump, pogo.
I love it. This
This
is
is
exactly
solid.
what I wanted, boys. Thank you.
Box, broad, tuck, pogo, broad, pogo, tuck, box. All right. Good guesses, guys. Tyler, what do we got?
Okay. So in order from greatest to least, the first we have is the broad jump.
Boom, boom, boom.
The second would be the tuck jump. After that, we have the box jump and then the pogo.
So
So, broad jump, very easy. It's full body. A lot of stretch shortening cycle happening. Your center of gravity is going to change, and there's a huge landing mechanic. And that landing mechanic on the broad jump is why it's the most neurologically demanding. The next is the tuck jump, due to the rate of force and the land, even though your center of gravity is staying in the same place. If you tuck jump high enough, that landing is still going to be very neurologically demanding. And because of that, the box jump is in third place because the land is very easy since you're almost landing at the apex height of the jump. So there's not a huge neurological demand on the landing mechanics. And the last is the pogo jump because only 2 joints, well, really 3 joints are involved, but it's considered a low level plyometric.
Love it. I think it was Nicholas and Noah got those ones right. So good job, guys.
Nailed it.
Nailed it. All right. On a hard, sustainable interval day, what should be the goal? What should the goal feel like for most reps? So this is your 400, 800 meter repeat days. What should this feel like for most reps? Option A, each rep is max effort and you accept a little bit of pace fall off throughout the session. B, you aim for consistent reps with a small performance drop at most. C, you keep the first half easy, then turn every rep into a sprint finish. D, you go by heart rate only and ignore pace. So it's A, each rep is a max effort and you accept pace fall off. B, you aim for consistent reps with a small performance drop at most. C, you keep the first half easy, then turn every rep into a sprint finish. Or D, you go by heart rate and ignore pace. B, B, B. Go ahead. B, even though I often find myself doing A. Yeah, I feel that, brother. I feel that. All right, B, 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 B. Yes, the answer is B. And a lot of times we can find ourselves doing A, but when we do A, there's 2 things that happen. One, we get a lot of fatigue from these sessions. Obviously, we're just crushing ourselves the majority of the session. And also, this is something that is not talked about a whole lot when we do A and we're going max effort every single time, is we have that form breakdown. We start to kind of round at the back. We overextend our steps, leading to that big braking force. And a lot of times, if you guys are experiencing shin splints or Achilles pain or knee issues only on your speed days, that is a big indication of that mechanical change in your pacing. So make sure that when we're doing these speed sessions, we're keeping it nice and crispy and we're trying to maintain consistent splits across the session. All right, Tyler, what do we got on the next one?
Okay, number 5. When does the recovery process happen? Is it A, after the session is over? B, when I'm feeling relaxed? C, in between sets? Or D, all the above? So again, when does recovery process happen? After the session? B, when I'm relaxed? C, in between sets? D, all the above?
D all the way around. We got a bunch of good test takers in here. Anytime you get an all the above, that's it.
Yep. So just a little advice. So you guys know the answers, right? But it's harder to put in practice. So if you're always recovering, that's why your nutrition is so important. That's why your hydration is so important, because that recovery process is always happening. You're always kind of recovering from previous sessions, previous sets, and always when you get into a relaxed state, it kind of sets it on hyperdrive. So
Yeah.
take that information to always try to maximize your recovery throughout the day with proper nutrition and hydration.
100%. Peyton says everyone knows any military question that is an all of the above is the answer without looking at the others.
Yeah, this is true. Sorry, boys.
That is true. We should have tricked you guys on that all the above, man. But I also want to add something on this is when I'm relaxed. A lot of guys, especially guys who are in the military, and maybe you have a leader that like really pisses you off, and you drive home and you're pissed off. You have a bunch of, road rage on your way home. You're quick to get angry at home. All of that is increasing your stress, increasing your cortisol levels, and reducing your ability to properly recover. So oftentimes people will really underestimate the negative effects that just life stressors will have on your ability to recover and make progress and the adaptations from the training that we're getting in. So not only are we trying to optimize sleep, not only are we trying to eat well, we are actually trying to stay relaxed. If that means going for a walk, if that means, doing your hobbies, whatever, getting disconnected from work itself or any of the stressors that you have, then do it. If it leads to more relaxation, it will help. Box breathing and meditation has kept my sleep and emotions in check recently. Love that, man. Box breathing is a fantastic way to do it. If you guys don't know what box breathing is, you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold empty for 4 seconds, and repeat that. Really good way to calm down that nervous system. All right, if a candidate is getting hot spots, shin pain, or knee pain from rucking, the smartest way to progress is A, keep the same load and distance and wait for the body to catch up. B, reduce load or distance slightly, fix footwear setup, and rebuild progressively. C, stop rucking completely and only run until better. Or D, add more rucking frequency so the body adapts faster. Drop them in there. Drop them in there.
John, you like bees, dude.
Do I? Damn, dude. First time making a test and all my answers are B.
Yeah.
Hey, at least you guys $10.
Yeah.
I'm changing it right now, dude. No, it is B. So this is like kind of the military thought process in getting guys to get better at running and rucking. We're gonna hit them with a bunch of miles. We're gonna hit them with a bunch of rucking every week, and we're just gonna pound them until they adapt. Well, that usually leads to a bunch of prolonged injuries or turning these small issues into those chronic stressors. So we want to reduce the load slightly for a period of time, fix any footwear setups. The biggest thing I always talk about with this, guys, is like, I know you might go out there and spend $180 on a pair of boots. And then you start rucking in the boots, get 4-6 rucks in with it. And you're like, these aren't it. And some of you guys, because I was this dude, will be like, I spent a bunch of money on it, and we have that sunken cost fallacy. So I'm just going to ride it, and my feet will get accustomed to the boots. You want to find a boot that fits you and you are confident rucking in. So fix footwear setup and then rebuild progressively. Number 7, Tyler, what we got? I'm going to make sure I don't have a B in my next question.
All right. Mobility and movement quality matter a ton when you're wearing gear, moving over rough terrain, or getting up and down fast. Which daily habit best improves hip and shoulder mobility? A, static stretching for 20 minutes before every workout. B, 5 to 10 minutes of a dynamic warm-up plus a few loaded mobility drills. C, foam rolling or trigger pointing. D, a combo of sauna and deep sports massage.
B, B, D, A,
A.
B. Solid. So some A's, some D, mostly B. Cool. What
Okay.
is the correct answer?
So the correct answer is B. Now, when I made this, I put things that all work, but when it matters the most improvement is going to happen through consistent repetition, so dynamic warm up every day, and loaded mobility drills far surpass any one of these in creating range of motion for the joint. Out of all of these right here, I'd say the second most powerful is the deep sports massage. But since that only kind of dwells in the land of increasing tactile factors, pliability of tissue, that's not a guarantee you're going to increase the range of motion of a joint.
Yes. Now, Tyler, with that question, did you notice which of the answers it was?
B.
Damn it, dude. Damn it. We got to coordinate better. All right. All right. Next question. Land nav question for you guys. Most major land navigation errors happen because of A, slight azimuth drift over long movements, B, misjudging distance, C, abandoning a deliberate confirmation process, or D, choosing suboptimal attack points. Drop them in there. Drop them in there. C, C, A, C, C, C. Solid answers, guys. Solid answers. It pumps me up to have you, get it right. But most of you guys got it wrong. It's actually, no, I'm kidding. It is C, abandoning a deliberate confirmation process. So slight azimuth drift will happen every time you step off from that starting point. That is why we have corridors of travel. We have, maybe it's not a handrail where we're like watching the road, but we have some type of linear feature where like that's our shit azimuth. We can shoot to that. We have misjudging distance. You are always going to misjudge slightly. So if you were like, okay, I got my next checkpoint in 900 meters and you're at like 780 meters or 750 meters, chances are your checkpoint is going to be, just a little bit further than you anticipated in your pace count. And then choosing suboptimal attack points, that is an error, but it's not the thing that is most likely going to cause you to a disruption in your path. Like that can absolutely throw you off. But the best answer is abandoning a deliberate confirmation process. And this starts with what, guys? It starts with the route planning process. If you take the time to route plan properly in the beginning, have quality legs of movements with identifiable, checkpoints along the way, you confirm them, then you're just moving from point to point, 800 to 1200 meters at a time, breaking that movement down instead of trying to go 7K drifting and then getting frustrated when you can't find your points. For sure, man. No matter what, trust your compass. Yes, you will get to a point where you're in Bones Fork Creek and you're surrounded by nothing but briars that just scratch and cut your skin, and you have been walking seemingly west for the last 45 minutes, and you were, supposed to be on the other side of this draw in 100 meters. So you look down at your compass and you're like, there is no way that is west. There is no possible way I still have that far to go through this draw. And you will question your compass. And when you do, I want you to think back to this conversation and be like, Alpar said and John said, trust your compass no matter what. So trust that damn compass when you're going through those draws in particular. Doing land nav for the first time this weekend at Fort Knox for future soldiers. So glad I'm hearing all this. Jag, dude, freaking let me know how it goes. Super pumped for you to get out there and get some reps in. Terrain association and triple checking plots prior has been icing on the cake for me. Yes, there's that old carpenter term, measure twice, cut once. So triple check that shit. Make sure your points are plotted correctly. Azimuths are converted from grid north to magnetic north, and you are good to go. As an NCO and 12 years in, I've told the majority of my soldiers make a plan and go with it. 100%. Solid, guys. we got a solid group of guys. We're gonna have to make these questions way freaking harder next time. You guys are catching on and gotten them quick. I think class wise, you're at like a 90% pass rate right now. All right, Tyler, what do we got?
During SFAS events like Team Week or individual runs, you'll need to move fast under load or recover quickly between efforts. What's the smartest way to train for this? A. Long, slow, distant runs for 60 plus minutes to build aerobic endurance. B. Establish excellent 1 rep max strength in the major lifts. C. Intervals like 400 and 800 meter repeats, carries, or hill sprints. D. Only doing HIIT training at the end of your sessions.
CAC AAC A C and A. All right. Tyler, let's break it down. What's the right answer and why?
Okay, gentlemen, the answer is C. Short intervals, 400 to 800 meter repeats, carries, and hill sprints, because those things on a biological level will translate to most of that high elevated heart rate. The intensity will cross over to the load that's going to be placed on your back, especially the demand of something like a team week where there's going to be load not only on the spine, but maybe in the hands or in the crooks of the elbow and all over your body. So from center of mass to forward of mass, that stress will be there. So in order to recover from that, you have to put yourself in that state. And we don't see that in long, slow distance. So all of these things do have a crossover or carryover to helping you in that endeavor. But the one that would get the most bang for your buck is C.
Yeah. And the way to think about it is we talk about, and I think you and I talked about it a couple weeks ago on a podcast, the importance of a very developed aerobic system and the effects that has on us metabolically. So at a metabolic standpoint, we can recover a little bit quicker. But if we don't get the specific stress to the things that we're going to do, to the musculature, the ability to brace, the ability to move under load, then it is going to crush us a little bit. So specificity in this sense wins. All right, one more land nav question for you guys. Killing it with the land nav questions. For most candidates, the best attack point is the one that is A, closest to the point in a straight line distance, B, most visually distinct and reliable to identify, C, at the highest nearby elevation, or D, located directly along the planned azimuth. B, 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 A, B, A, B, B. All right, guys, it is B. Damn it, dude.
D.
D, got it. It is B. So noted on the next call, all of my answers will not be B.
Or we'll make them B again.
Yeah, really trick with them. So it is most visually distinct and reliable to identify. So let's do a little scenario-based type thing. If we have two different attack points that we are looking at, one of them is 300 meters. Let's say 350, 400 meters away from our desired point. Let's say 300 meters. Super close, really easy, but it's not super identifiable. Maybe it's like a broken trail system that is, it's a bend in the road that we're trying to find that bend in the road and use that as an attack point, versus one that's 550, maybe 600 meters away, but it's a really clearly identifiable terrain feature like an intersection. I will use that clearly identifiable terrain section versus something that I'm not going to know exactly where I'm at all day long. And the reason for that is that last leg of the movement has to be precise. It has to be really, really precise. So we need to know exactly where we're standing. We need to have that deliberate dead reckoning process and then go find the point. If we don't know where we're starting from exactly, then it's going to be very, very challenging to find that point. And that's usually when we end up circling the area and pissed off that we can't find it, and then going back to our last checkpoint and trying again. So if you end up in this situation, don't panic. Identify a potential better attack point, or go back to the attack point if you already have one and reset. It's much faster to do that than circling the area and you end up teleporting because you're walking without any distinct pattern or any way of knowing exactly where you're at. So that is all the questions for you guys tonight, guys. Lots of B's in there, but overall, you guys did really good. So it's clear that you were learning, and it pumps me up that you guys knew all of these answers. On the next one, we will have it more challenging. So you've proven that you crushed it. So I think class-wise, I'll rate you guys. What was it? The neurological demand one missed it, and then the number 9 missed that as well. So 8 out of 10 overall, solid class, guys. Let's dive into some questions. So we are going to be looking at a few questions that were submitted. If you guys have any questions, whether on the questions that we provided or anything that comes up, please drop it in the chat and we will dive into it. But first one is, all right. Okay, my wrists, and this is something that we saw at the live event this weekend. My wrists are super tight in the front rack position for heavy front squats. Will this loosen up with more exposure to the front rack, or is there a movement I should do to help? Tyler, I'll let you take that one.
So a little bit of yes and a lot of bit of no. So the wrists will eventually adapt to the stimulus, but not in the time frame that you're looking for. What really we want to do is open up the tricep and the lat. Those are the main movers which puts your wrists into a good position or a bad position. And since we are so anterior dominant in everything we do, the triceps and the lats are going to get tacked down the most. So getting into a good front rack position, you can do with a barbell alone, by oscillating it side to side and trying to bring your triceps up into the fold. But the best drill that I use for this is a bandage stretch, where I take a mobility band, I attach it towards the bottom part of a rack, I slip my wrist through the band, I wrap it around, and I get into a front rack position. So I'm lengthening out all of the tricep and all of the lats. And that way it's easier for me to coordinate the shoulder to get my elbow up in this upright position. But most of us have the mobility. Usually when I'm checking people for mobility, I'll ask them, can you put your thumb and touch it right here on your shoulder or your trap? And most of the time the answer is yes. What happens is once the bar's in front and we try to get ready for a squat, it's usually the spinal extension that comes into play and then places more demand on the muscles that are tacked down. So get yourself a mobility band, try the front rack stretch, see if that helps for you, but it helps with almost like 99% of the population that are trying to unglue themselves for this.
Solid. And that is definitely something we saw this weekend when we were working the squat. Everyone had the mobility right away.
Yes.
Can you explain the spinal extension and why that prevents guys from getting into that position? Because I think a lot of times, especially those that played football in high school, like you and I talked about, coaches taught their athletes to just arch your back, look up in the sky, and that's how you squat. How does that affect shoulder mobility or getting into that proper position?
So the biggest thing is there's a huge co-contraction. So you would want the spine to be erect, but not hyperextended. So because of modern life, sitting, because of boot life, our ankles are pretty much on lockdown. We only find extension through that hyperextended position. So if we try to coordinate the spine to move like this, it shuts down the optimization of the shoulder. So if we learn to extend the spine in an organized manner, which places more demand on the musculature, which is something that doesn't feel right, or the operator would go, "Oh, I don't know about that." They'll make the manipulation or the change through the spine 9 times out of 10 because it's the easiest route to success. But when you put load on that position and you stick the bar out front, it's really hard to do. So by giving them some more mobility through the upper extremities, they can at least put the bar in front rack position. But then learning how to squat is something in itself on the other end, because usually with that huge spinal extension, you'll see the butt wink at the bottom, and they're just not in true control of that lift.
Solid. Jag, I know we just talked about correct 2 mile pacing. Doing my 5 mile tonight, what's the most efficient pacing to apply for the best performance? Same thing, just spread out over that multiple time difference or the multiple mile difference. So let's say you are, and I'm just going to keep it simple for the sake of math, because math can be hard with the 5 mile times. Let's say you're going for a 40-minute 5 mile. That is a 8-minute pace. So your goal on those first 3 miles is to keep it, sub 8 minutes. Not by, you're not crushing it, not running a 7-minute mile. Obviously, I'll talk about that in a second, but you're crushing or you're keeping it sub goal splits. Then as you get into that final 2 miles on the 5 mile, that's when you can kind of open it up. The 5 miles are a little bit longer. It's not as high intensity as the 2 mile. So I can kind of open myself up slightly, a little bit longer out, and then maintain that pace across the finish. And same thing, I'm ramping up across that finish in that last half mile of the run. So I would take your goal of the run. Like what are you trying to run with this 5 mile realistically, right? We can have big jumps in it, but usually we're going to see 30, possibly 45 seconds if it's been 6 to 8 weeks since you last ran a timed 5 mile. And we can take that into consideration when we're planning our splits for the run. Now, if we get out there and we're doing our splits on mile 1, mile 2, mile 3, and we feel fantastic, you can speed it up a little bit. We're just using that as like our baseline. If we hit this, we know we're going to hit our goal. What I like to kind of tell guys or ask myself when I'm doing one of those runs and I'm wanting to speed it up is I'm trying to find the point at which I could speed up and I do not have to slow down. So if I speed up a little bit, I'm going to ask myself, can I maintain this for the entire duration, or am I going to have to slow down? If the answer is you're going to have to slow down, then I would keep it a little bit below that for those first few miles and reserve that for the last mile. I hope that answers your question. When are the live events and the info about them? So next live event is going to be in Tempe, Arizona on March 14th. Coach Tyler's flying out. CJ is likely flying out. So we'll have a good event out here in Tempe, March 14th. How do you find about SFAS dates slash transferring from the guard to active at the end of a contract? So SFAS dates will be through the SORB recruiter. I always recommend going through them. If you guys need a solid SORB recruiter, he's out of Fort Carson. If you guys are anybody active duty on the West Coast, I'd be happy to hook you up. And then transferring from guard to active at the end of a contract is going to be done through your command. Typically, it sounds like we had a guy from Florida National Guard, and he was saying like their command is super cool about it, and they pretty much let guys transfer. In the past, it depends on the group and who is there. Sometimes they will make it a little bit challenging to do, but as long as you do your 3 years on a team there's usually is not an issue. But that will all be done through the recruiters. So don't have a whole lot of great answers for you in regard to contracts and recruiting, but it'll all be done through the SORB recruiters and through your retention NCO. All right, what's the best way to go about doing intervals, timed runs, and long distance runs in cold, snowy, or icy conditions? I'm going to ask you, Tyler, in just a second about breathing in the cold and any physiological differences or anything we can do with that. But snowy and icy conditions, if it's just training, and I think I just sent you a message as well, Noah, if it's just in training and it's icy outside, go inside on the treadmill or go in. If you guys have like an indoor track, do that. I do not want you guys pushing it, running in the dark, slipping on a patch of ice and then busting yourself and then disrupting training for subsequent 4 to 6 weeks because you wanted to run through the poor conditions. So if it's like actually slippery to the point where you might get injured, I recommend jumping inside. If it's, doable and it's just cold, then you can go outside and get the run in those conditions. Just be smart about it, and you're not going to actually hurt yourself. But Tyler, in regard to breathing and performing in cold weather, do you have any tips for guys?
So the tips would be, if you have the time, you can kind of get your lungs a little bit acclimated. So you see this in the NFL and in some college sports when the weather is really cold. Now there's a reason they go out and do like their little pregame rituals. They catch some balls, but we know in the winter weather, it's really important for them to get out there and get exposure to that cold level in their lungs. So if I had some running planned outside, what I would try to do is I would try to plan my dynamic warm-up outside and maybe prolong it a little bit. We're talking like 10 to 15 minutes. And what you're doing is, one, you're trying to warm your body up, but you're really trying to get your lungs used to what's about to happen, because the capacity just isn't going to be the same. It's not. But if you can kind of accommodate your nervous system and your breathing to those levels, it's probably going to be beneficial for your pacing in those earlier sprints. Now, once you kind of break into it, then you might not have such an issue. But on those earlier distances, when you start to try to push it or hold a pace, you could definitely run into some walls, so to speak. But being out there for a little bit gives you a little bit of that advantage. And in my years of coaching, that's about the only thing I know of.
Peyton said, does this apply to rucks as well in the cold? Yeah,
For sure.
same thing. If you're gonna bust your ass and fall or anything like that, then yeah, not worth it getting in there. And if you guys need to get rucks indoors or you need to supplement a ruck, I know a lot of you guys have had some crazy ass weather this last week. Maybe you're restricted to training inside or everything's super icy. You can go on the treadmill and do an incline treadmill walk. If you have a weighted vest, it's still going to give us that exposure, and that will help a little bit to offset the demands of not being outside. This is a good one. So last week we did a podcast on nutrition, and one of the first things we said was a lot of times when guys come into the program, they might struggle a little bit to meet the nutrition demand. So the question is, how much food is too much food? I just started training in the program 2 weeks ago, and it sometimes feel like I'm eating too much to the point where I can't finish my food. So right there, so physiologically, we base it off of total daily energy expenditure. This is the amount that you burn at rest plus the potential energy that you're going to burn through the training. However, there are a lot of guys, particularly on the more lean side, who have trained for a long period of time and never actually ate at their total daily energy expenditure or that amount of food to really support performance. So if you just go from 0 to 100 and start eating, it can kind of bog up the digestion and make it very challenging. So what we can do is ramp up to it. Like if you're to the point where you can't eat the amount of food, or you're having struggles getting that nutrition in, you can back off by 200-300 calories or by about 10%, and slowly over the next 2-3 weeks gradually increase the amount you're eating. But the goal is to get to that level to where we're eating to sustain performance, and sometimes that requires a lot of food, and if someone doesn't have a huge appetite, it can be a challenge at times. Damn, the lung burns in the cold. Yes, it does. Would trail, snow, rucks / run be an asset while the snow is here, as long as you're not falling, etc.? Yeah. If it's not like super nasty, and you're not going to bust your ass, and it's like you have really relatively solid, grip, then yeah, it's fine to get those trail runs and rucks in. And I think there is something to be said about the stress inoculation of moving through cold weather like this, exposing yourself to it, getting out in the conditions, getting a little bit wet. Obviously, not to the point where you're getting injured or developing any issues, but there are benefits to the stress that is associated with it, and essentially proving to yourself that you're not made of glass. And when you get out to selection and it's 6 degrees and an ice storm, you know you can push through the cold and be fine. Realistic timeline for realizing past aerobic/anaerobic capacity once fully healed from an injury. Example, meniscus tear, 1.5 months, no and only zone 2 swims. 1.5 months to get back to injury free, slowly ramping up impact/running volume. So typically with something like this, Tyler, what would be a realistic timeline just based on this information?
Yeah, so we could go into kind of what grade the meniscus tear was. There's multiple different grades, from a full tear to a partial tear, slap tear, etc. But usually with the meniscus, it's about training the VMO, which is the teardrop part of the quadriceps. Getting that strong through a full range of motion is the first thing that you can set to do while you're doing some swimming and those non-impact type cardio endeavors. Once that's established, then just really getting some baseline plyometrics, progressing that into a slow jog could happen about a month after that. So usually about month 3, you could start to what's called a return to play. So after about 3 months to 4 months total, you would have a fully recovered meniscus if it's like a partial tear. Now it's hyper dependent on pain tolerance. Some people have meniscus tears and they're completely asymptomatic. Sometimes the symptoms produce worse in certain people. So even though it might be partial, you might get a lot of pain response. Learning when to work through pain is crucial. But with a meniscus, you have to be very careful with the pain signals that it's sending. It's not like a tendon. You can't load it up super much and directly. So you have to just kind of be aware of, on a daily basis, there should be a test. So like a single leg squat or a double leg squat test that you would do the next morning. And that would kind of justify, was this too much stress that we just put on this area? And if it's about the same as it was yesterday, then you recovered, you're good to go. And that's how you work your progression.
Yeah. And that brings up a follow-up question. You talked about plyometrics and the reintroduction of them. This weekend, we also talked about plyometrics and its use case in terms of running. Plyometrics and tendon stiffness overall. How does tendon stiffness affect and increase our ability to run?
So the more stiff a tendon is, not only can it apply force more effectively, so it can do more for performance, but it also can be more resilient. So you want stiff tendons. It's like the opposite of a muscle. So training that tendon stiffness was the primary reason plyometrics are used. So you would think vertical jump is power production, and what's happening on a biological level is the tendon and the collagen they're starting to bind more and more through the training, making it stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, which allows it to handle more load in an instant or load over time.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times guys will see things like pogo jumps and all of that stuff that is building that reactive force production. And a good way to visualize this, I read a great book on it recently called Running Rewired. And he was talking about, if you have stiff tendons or you build that tendon stiffness through structured plyometrics, and when you're running, that might be able to exert a little bit more force to where you maybe get a half inch or an inch longer with every stride, because running is simply a series of jumps and lands. So if you have stiff tendons, you can exert a lot of force through it. You can increase your time simply by how much you can push off with each one of those strides without overstriding and getting into that negative shank angle. So A lot of times you guys will see that, and that I just want to make sure everyone knows that is the reason, that is the thing that we are looking to build with movements like that, is that reactive force and tendon stiffness. Do y'all recommend ice baths for recovery / mental toughness?
So from nervous system recovery, and if you're far away from training, yes. So how does this look? Let's say I trained in the morning and I have some lunch after that, and I go kind of about my day, and I feel like very neurologically depressed, like I'm sluggish. I can't make it through the day. The training's kind of killing me, and you're kind of in the monotony of things. I would deploy an ice bath later in that evening, to kind of give a shock to the nervous system and just to give you something to completely hyper focus on, to kind of mentally reset you and just let that nervous system get absolutely super excited so you can come off of that and try to relax and put you in a nice parasympathetic state. Now, usually we see ice baths and things like two-a-days with football after tons of strenuous work, and that is super advantageous if the goal is just to execute every day. What do I mean by this? So an ice bath up to 10 minutes post-exercise nulls and dulls the adaptation because you're creating a new stimulus. So if you wanted to get really strong after a leg session or put on some hypertrophy, the ice plunge or ice bath would dull the signal. So you wouldn't get the most bang for your buck. I'll give you another example. I have a women's soccer team and we have a tournament and we have to play 2 games every day for 3 days in a row. I'm going to deploy an ice bath to expedite their neural recovery after each game, knowing that their fitness levels won't go up via the game because they're already coming into this tournament at a certain fitness level. I'm not using the games that they're playing to try to increase their fitness level. I just want them to get recovered enough that they can just repeat the same thing, repeat the same thing, repeat the same thing. So they're not getting any better. They're just able to repeat.
Solid. That's a really great description of ice baths. I got nothing to add but the mental toughness. I do think when deployed correctly, obviously not to the point where it stunts our growth or stunts the adaptations, because that is what we are trying to do here, is incite those adaptations. Ice baths and cold exposure can build mental toughness, because all mental toughness is telling ourselves that we are going to do something and then getting our physical body to match those thoughts, to take action with it. And if you've ever stood outside of a cold pool about to jump in, or an ice bath, you usually say, all right, I'm going to get in. And then as soon as you get up to it, you have that gut feeling, that knot in your gut, and you hesitate. And if you start hesitating, it prolongs it. And a lot of times you'll be like, okay, I'm not going to do it. So if we can stress that muscle and flex that muscle a little bit of pushing through and getting ourselves to do the things that we say we're going to do, it will bleed into everything that we want to do down the road. So Tyler does cold exposure with his showers every night, and I think that will get the same effects of getting into a cold plunge from a mental toughness standpoint, because you're forcing yourself to stand in that water, even though it's pretty freaking miserable. So yes.
And I do like plunging. So you would think of plunging is different than ice submersion. So that is, I'm going to get into an ice bath or an ice tub, full body. I'm going to bring my head underneath, keep everything under except my head, and maybe crank it to up to 2 minutes max. Then plunge again, get my head under. That's the crappy part. And then get out. At 2 minutes, at about 40 degrees maximum, you're not going to have that much stress placed on the tissue. It's really just an override of the nervous system. Now, I still don't like doing them post lifting. I really like doing them if you had the ability, first thing in the morning, a couple hours after a lifting session, and then maybe at night, if you're someone that runs a bit high on cortisol, you find yourself really tired by 2 p.m., you need to crack a ghost just to get through your daily endeavors in the evening, you would be someone that might want to experiment with cold water exposure in the evening.
Solid. All right. Ryan asks, how should I set up a land nav course and have knot ties and other things a part of it? I have access to thousands of acres of land here in Texas. That's freaking awesome. Thousands of acres, man. Let's run a land nav course out there. or should I even worry about it? Yeah, bro. If you have thousands of acres access to it, damn sure get out there and run some land nav training. So I'm going to drop a link. Excuse me. Got something in my throat. All right. So if you go to this website, it's called MyTopo, and you go to the custom map portion, you can type in on there where to get your custom map. Let me see if I can just share this on my screen. Oh, man. No, I can't share it because there's way too many buttons. But go to MyTopo, go to the custom map. It'll give you a bar where you can type it in, and you type in the location that you're looking at. Now, it can be kind of hard to find that sometimes, but kind of play with it. If you need to use AI to identify the location that you're at, I've had to use that for particular locations, and it'll give you a description of it. And then you can order a paper map from them, making sure it's MGRS and has all of the grid lines. That is a great way to do it. And what I would recommend doing is it'd be better if someone else went out and did it for you. Maybe you have a good friend or a family member and they can take the razor out, go hang, orange tape on a tree or something, and then pull the 8-digit grid, making sure that point is 400 or 500 meters away from an identifiable feature, aka a tack point. And then your job is to just go navigate from point to point out there. So that'd be a good way to get some actual exposure to land navigation. And like I said, if you have the land, that's like half the freaking challenge right there. So I'd absolutely recommend getting out there and doing it, especially when the vegetation out there in Texas is a little bit more died down. As far as knots, we do have a video inside of the school community of Chris teaching the square lashing. Highly recommend checking it out. Very good video. But I also recommend going to Amazon and buying some tubular nylon. I can actually drop that in the chat as well. This is just 1-inch tubular nylon that is green kind of webbing stuff. And that is what you are going to be using at selection. So this Amazon link is going to be long, but here you go. This is the tubular nylon that you will be using at selection once you get to team week for all of your stuff. And then I recommend you can just do this while you're watching TV, chilling in the house, get a strip about 3 feet long and work on doing your water knots, your square knots. You can work on, if you have 2 things of PVC, you can work on square lashings. I would start with 550 cord for the lashings and then work to the lashings once you actually work on it. But really good stuff to practice with and make sure you're proficient with. So highly recommend doing both those things. And it doesn't need to take up a whole bunch of time. Like I said, just kind of hanging out. For land nav, I've heard there are some national parks, regular parks that have land nav points, map, etc. that you can use. That would be awesome. I haven't heard of any near me, at least, to have points set up. But if you do, even checking out and joining a orienteering club near you would be a fantastic thing to do. They're going to teach a little bit different methodologies than military land navigation, but the principles and the terrain association will still apply. So really good stuff. Page protectors. Okay. Page protectors work great as an easy, cheap way to protect the paper so you can make pencil marks on paper or use markers on plastic for resection. Yeah, if you go to MyTopo, their maps are they're not like laminated. You can write on them, but they're like a waxy material, so they erase really well. As long as, you don't write on them with pen, I say that because when we did the land nav course last year, old Peyton wrote on it with pen, messed up my maps. But if you just write on it with pencil, you'll be good to go. It erases really well. Bro, you did. I have them right behind me. It's all good, dude. All good. All right. What should training structure look like while in the Q course? I like this question. And I want to ask you, before I answer on the Q course, what would training structure look like for someone who is operational?
So, does that mean downrange? Or are we talking
Like garrison, but doing training.
Okay, yeah. So, what I like to do in my previous career is I focused on the nervous system and recoverability as my number one thing to deploy. So, when the nervous system is freshest is usually on a Monday because you have your weekend of R&R. Hopefully you're not partying too hard and staying up late. But in theory, you should have the biggest bang on a Monday. So I focused on linear speed and acceleration. So we would do a full body warm up, some mobility. We would get on the turf and we would start just practicing acceleration, kind of like a sports team would. We wouldn't cover any more distance than 20 yards. After that, we would throw balls against the walls with some plyometrics, upper body plyometrics. We would hit our jumps. And then because I had their nervous system at a good spot, we would squat. Now, whether that's with a bar or with 2 legs was kind of how we were in the cycle. I focused a lot on trying to get into good quality movement with a squat. And once we hit 2 reps that were high quality, we would immediately switch to a single leg. Now, if I had guys that were banged up, we would start on a single leg first and get everything really revved up with like long, heavy single leg Bulgarian squats. And then I would deploy a back squat on them for really low dosage, just high quality movement. And then we get into some accessories. The next day, we would do upper body focus movements and localized muscular endurance. So just think upper body strength, a lot of pull-ups, one-arm rows, carries, things that aren't going to necessarily tax the nervous system that much, just giving them some breathing room, so to speak, protecting their spine as well. On Wednesdays, we would do like long, slow distance running, any type of Metcon that they would want to do, something in that area, again, not getting too much on the spine. So you could see it's been, since Monday, we had direct spinal loading, and now we're going to wait till Thursday to do it again. That's usually when we would deadlift. We would go outside in the beginning of that session and do change of direction training. So that's your 5-10-5, a lot of cone cuts, lateral agility, shuffles, which would help them with CQB. And one of their tests that they would have is the 5-10-5. So some agility training, some deadlifting, some heavy carries, grip work, etc. And that would take us into a Flex Friday where we would just do tons of carries, grip work, upper body. But you can see in that arena, loading the spine is great, but it comes with a huge cost, especially if the ops tempo is really high. You have a lot of really demanding training ahead of you. You want to be really smart about how you dosage when you're going to load the spine to get benefits, to get gains, and then also just being okay with making adjustments on the fly when it comes to volume and intensity. So we could have a beautiful plan, but it was always auto-regulated. It was always auto-regulated. Even if guys are, how you feeling? How you feeling? I'm doing good, coach. I'm doing good. And then in the dynamic warm-up, they couldn't lunge right. Things just weren't snappy. And in the back of my head, I was like, oh, I'm peeling a set off. They don't even know I'm peeling a set off.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that question is because that is pretty much how you should train in the Q course. In the Q course, 2 things are going to happen. 1, you're going to go out to the field for 6-8 weeks, potentially at a time for SUT, a couple weeks for SEER, and you're going to atrophy quite a bit. You're going to lose some weight. You're going to lose some strength. So, and then number 2 is there's going to be a bunch of guys around you all wanting to jump on SARMs because they want to show up to their team freaking jacked. So you're going to get out of these environments where you're out in the field. You kind of got over the hump inside the Q course, and you're like, all right, time to put on some mass, time to freaking gain that strength back, all that stuff. And a lot of guys will do this at the expense of the athletic development movements, the lateral movements, the mobility work that you maintain inside of it, the plyometrics, the explosive work, and they just focus on hypertrophy. There's nothing wrong with hitting hypertrophy and getting to the Q course. I'm like, I'm going to put on some mass. I'm going to gain some mass back from C or whatever. I have nothing against like hypertrophy plans until the hypertrophy becomes such a big focus and takes up so much bandwidth that we completely neglect the athletic development movements or the conditioning that is specific to your job. So maintain the plyometrics, maintain the explosive work, the lateral movement, the mobility, and then you can tack on a little bit of hypertrophy work in there and build that mass back, which is primarily going to be your nutrition anyway.
Just to piggyback on that, John, when I was at the unit, one of the biggest pings of an injury, and that's not to knock on hypertrophy training. I'm all about it. And even in the display I just gave you, you can get absolutely yacked doing that and capable. But
we're going to get yacked with this new program.
That's what I'm talking about. So I saw a ton of injuries from that situation you just gave me. Coach, I want to gain some weight. I would give them a plan. I know they weren't following the plan. They would pull off a bodybuildingsomething.com and they'd be rolling and they would look great. I mean, capable. Like if that dude's walking into a team room, you'd be like, oh yeah, he's got it going on. But then when we would, hey, we got to take a PT test, and they knew they weren't going to run, just on a broad jump, I saw dudes get absolutely smoked, knees smoked.
Oh, yeah.
I saw a guy, I don't want to go too deep into it, but he was going to go to a tier 1 unit, and during a box jump, ACL gone.
Oof.
Just because he lost that ability, right? So like you're saying, there's a time and place for everything, and let's say you want to go full-blown bodybuilding. Cool, I'll work with you. But let's warm up like an athlete. Just warm up like an athlete. Get some plyometrics in there. Throw some stuff. Carry some stuff in the warm up. And then bodybuild if that's what you want to do for 4 weeks. But there's got to be that blend. There's always in the back of your head. It's got to be, so what's next? Yeah. So you put on a bunch of mass. Great. So what's next? Like, can you change a direction with all that mass? When's the last time you did it? Like, that's huge.
Yeah. And the problem is, a lot of us come from athletic backgrounds. Neurologically, we're going to have the know-how on how to do those movements, but our body loses the conditioning to do them. So when we ask, like a box jump, our system to do something that we previously knew 5 years ago on how to do, and we do it very explosively, very, very dynamically, but the tissue is not conditioned to that impact, that's where those injuries occur. All right, guys, that's all we got for tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed the quiz. 80% this week. We're expecting better the next quiz we run. If you guys want any topics or anything you want covered on these calls, please let us know. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's finish out the week strong. And if there's anything you need on our end, just hit me up. 8% good enough for government work. Hey, not good enough for the EOD course. I learned that the hard way. Okay. You got to have 85% at the EOD course or you're done. And I was done. So with that, I'm done. See you guys.